its most basic form, all good speeches, arguments, and essays announce their topics, they capture their audience's attention, and they draw upon the audience's pathos, ethos, or logos. These three persuasive strategies to make their audience side with their point of view. The same formula that we use when we open our essay. We are, in our essays, developing critical thought and effective communication. These are foundational cores of a liberal education, which is what you are receiving at Bishop's. They're actually skills that are transferable into every aspect of your life. So, essay writing is not some dusty, arcane exercise one must suffer through to pass a course. There are skills of argumentation that if you can conquer those, you can conquer the world. I'm going to look at three things. I'm going to first introduce the 5 parts of rhetoric, and then I'm going to focus on one of those parts of rhetoric in detail, called disposition, which just means how to structure your argument or essay. And then finally, I'll talk about key concepts, things that you really need to pay attention to as you're writing your essay. Okay. So the 5 parts of rhetoric are thousands of years old. Marcus Tullius Cicero wrote De Oratore, or About Oratory, in 55 BC. And he sketched out the ideal portrait of an orator, what the orator needed to keep in mind in order to make the most persuasive argument. Cicero provides us with these rules that are the building blocks of every famous oration, article, and essay that has come since 55 BC. If you go back and look at YouTube and you see Obama's most famous speeches, his inauguration speeches, his speeches on the campaign trail, you can actually go and see the components of the classical argument that Cicero outlined over 2,000 years ago. It is a fascinating exercise. So, the 5 parts of rhetoric. The first one is invention. It is how you come up with the idea, who your audience is, what kind of evidence you use to persuade your readers. It is the brainstorming and the work you do in order to put together your essay. The second one is disposition. It is the structure. There are 7 parts of a perfectly structured essay, and we'll look at that a little bit later. The third, fourth, and fifth, style, memory, and delivery, are designed for performance. They're designed for somebody who is standing up in front of a group of people. So the style, how do you ornament your language? Memory, how do you memorize your speech so it doesn't seem like you're really boring? And then delivery, what kind of performance elements are you going to add to your speech? Are you going to gesticulate grandly? Are you going to be calm and quiet? Those are all styles of delivery. We're only going to focus on the first 2 because they're the only ones that are prevalent in a written essay form. But invention is really important. You have to understand who your audience is, who you are directing your argument to. Now, for university essays, your argument will always be directed towards your professor. You can make a few assumptions about this kind of target audience. You can assume that your professor is the expert in the field that you are discussing. So therefore, your professor has read all of the primary texts and much of the secondary sources, so there's no need to create plot summary. Often, high school and stage-up teachers will tell you to write an essay so that anybody off the street could be able to read it and understand it. That is not the case of a university essay. You can assume a kind of knowledge in the delivery of your argument. The presentation of your essay is important. You have to consider the length of the assignment. So if your professor asks you for 3 to 5 pages, do not give them 20 pages. Give them 3 to 5 pages. If they ask you for a research essay that is 8 to 10 pages, don't give them 5 pages. So understand the presentation. So by doing a lot of research and thinking about your topic and brainstorming in a kind of free writing style, you are actually participating in invention, the first part of rhetoric. All right, we're going to look at the structure of a classical argument. there are 7 parts of a classical argument that is laid out by Cicero. I'm going to define them and I'm going to give you examples of what these components are. So the first one is exordium, then we have narration, proposition, division, confirmation, refutation, and conclusion. So let me define these parts of an argument for you. The first one is exordium. Everybody has an exordium. It is the first 1 or 2 sentences at the beginning of your essay, designed to announce your topic and to make your audience receptive of what argument you're about to present. And you will be using an exordium in your essays. You should be announcing your topic and your text and giving your reader a kind of context for what you're about to deliver. Make sure that you do not start with generalities. The next component is narration. Now, narration is a statement or set of statements of facts and the general subject. You are not doing anything groundbreaking here in your narration. You are defining your terms. You are saying to your audience, we are going to share these assumptions. The next component is your proposition, and this is your thesis statement. Your thesis statement is where you state succinctly your specific argument. This is an argumentative sentence. You are pushing the boundaries of established knowledge. You are coming up with an insightful claim that marks you as a unique arguer. And then you have division. And division is a kind of roadmap for your audience. It provides your audience or your reader with the knowledge of what you are going to look at. So a classical argument believed that 3 major points was the best form of an argument, that you had 3 things that you looked at. All 4 of these components of a classical argument occur in the first paragraph of your essay. So in the first paragraph of your essay, I like to call it the thesis paragraph. You will have your exordium, your narration, which is your definition of terms. You will have your proposition, and you will have your division. In your thesis paragraph, you are allowed to use the personal pronoun I, which is shocking, I think, to some of you who are just coming in. You are allowed to use the personal pronoun I when you use it forcefully, when you use it in an argumentative manner. I feel or I think are not appropriate openings to a sentence. You can say, I argue that, I state that, but don't say, I feel that. In this essay, I will argue is valid. It's actually a really good strategy because it draws your reader's attention to your major points. You can then say in your division, in doing so, I will look at Act 1, Scene 2, Act 3, Scene 2, and Act 5, Scene 1 in order to chart the trajectory of Romeo's maturity. So you've just given a division. You've just said, here's the roadmap. You can follow me as I go through my logical argument. So when you are revising your essay after you have done free writing, you should look for your thesis paragraph to have those 4 components. Then you've got confirmation. Confirmation is the main body of your essay. It is where you make your major points. Keep in mind that if you set up in the division that you're going to look at 3 things, make sure in the confirmation that those 3 things are in order as you go through. You are making arguments, you're making assertions, and you are backing them up with evidence, whether that's primary or secondary sources. Refutation anticipates opposing arguments. And your conclusion sums up your main points and usually ends with a rhetorical flourish. So you're evaluating all of the information that you've given, and then you're saying something bigger. Let's look at some of the key concepts of essay writing. Now, the following points are suggestions, they are not rules. So your thesis paragraph is the thing that if you master the genre. And your thesis paragraph may only come into focus after you've written at least 1 draft of your essay. You might find that your thesis statement is embedded somewhere in the third page of your essay. All you have to do in the revising process is to put that thesis statement back up in your thesis paragraph, in your first paragraph, and make sure that the rest of your essay follows that argument. Things to keep in mind. If you are asked to do a comparison of two works, say you're asked to compare two women in Chaucer, so Alison from The Miller's Tale and The Wife of Bath from The Wife of Bath's Tale. Comparison always involves contrasting. Stay focused on your argument. Echo your central thesis from time to time. In each paragraph is a kind of mini essay. So you'll have your topic sentence, so it's the argument for that particular idea. You'll have your evidence, which is the main part, the main meat of your paragraph, and then you'll have your final concluding sentence, which draws everything together and ties it back to your central thesis. So always allow your reader to understand the relevance of your points, to understand where you are going and where you have come from. These are the three ways that you persuade your audience. Pathos is to invoke an emotional register. It is to play on the heartstrings of your reader, or to scare your reader, or to cajole your reader. It is trying to elicit an affective response. Ethos is the claim of credibility. It says, I know that I am the authority on this topic. I have the credibility for you to listen to my argument and to believe it and be persuaded by it. And then you have logos, and logos is logical argumentation. It creates propositions that are backed up through evidence and then reaffirmed. So focus on logos. It was Aristotle's favorite form of persuasion. It means that you are using reason in order to prove your point. So criteria that you should keep in mind. Any statement that you make that is part of your argument should have textual evidence. So it transforms a statement from something that is speculative, right, that I am speculating that this might happen, to an argument because you've backed it up. You have strong evidence to support your claim. Now, proof is only one part of the use of quotations. The second part is analysis. So a quotation will never stand on its own. You make a statement, you provide evidence, but then you must comment and analyze the thing that you've just provided. Do not end a paragraph with a quotation because you leave your reader hanging. You wonder what that quotation has to do with your main argument. So you make the statement, you provide the evidence, and then you analyze the evidence and tie it back to your central thesis. So in terms of quotations, the first thing you should avoid are overly long quotations, especially in a short essay. If you want to emphasize something in the quotation, if you really want your reader to pay attention to something, you can use italics. Then you signal in your citation that emphasis was added. So you can either say my emphasis or emphasis added. It's a nice stylistic way of drawing your reader's attention to something that is really important and valuable. I mentioned earlier that paragraphs are like a mini essay, that they should have all of the components of an essay crystallized into this form. So you'll have a topic sentence, so you're announcing this one statement or idea. You'll have the confirmation, which is the textual evidence, and then you'll have a kind of conclusion which draws your idea back to the larger argument. A paragraph is 5 sentences or more. You need to have 5 sentences in a paragraph to make it a paragraph, but you should not have a paragraph that is more than 1 page long. It means that you haven't fully thought out the structure of the idea, or that there are more than one idea within this paragraph. So go through and break up those paragraphs. When you signal a new idea, you signal a new paragraph. One of the things that students often do is that they bite off more than they can chew. They overextend themselves by trying to prove too many things in one essay. And so often you'll have 3 essays embedded in one. So you'll have 3 related points, but they go off in different directions. If you try to incorporate too many ideas into your essay, what is going to happen is that you lose focus and you don't actually get your hands dirty. You don't do a close reading and you don't prove anything because you're stuck in these major generalizations. It doesn't matter what discipline you're in or what field you're studying. We all want the fundamental, basic building blocks that you demonstrate critical thought and effective communication. I'm proud and I can't get the words out.